The Pyro Archon Mavuika is out now, and I am really impressed by her damage. I actually did not expect that she is this powerful while being so cool. Hi, this is Earlbedo. In this video, I will be showing you the top 3 best teams for Mavuika. I'll give you options from premium teams to, of course, F2P friendly iterations. Just a disclaimer, this is not a full guide. Also, since I just got her and we cannot pre-farm all her materials, I currently have her at level 80 with these stats, wearing R5 Serpent Spine and Obsidian Codex at C0 and this talent levels. Lastly, we will focus on her DPS team since I think it's more worth to build her as a main DPS since Shangling, a 4-star, is slightly better and more consistent at being an off-field sub-DPS support. Before we proceed with the top 3 teams, there are things to consider when building Mavuika and setting up her teams. First, Mavuika does not use energy to use her elemental burst, which is very unique. Instead, she has what we call Fighting Spirit. She needs at least 100% Fighting Spirit to activate her burst, but she can store up to 200. And having 200 Fighting Spirit is important because it not only lets her use her burst, but also buffs the active character's damage, including her, by up to 40% depending on how many she has stored. This sounds great and lore accurate, but this can either be a pro for some and a con for others. That is because she only gains Fighting Spirits in 2 ways. The first and most efficient one is when Natlan characters consume Night Soul Point. It gives her Fighting Spirit very quickly. Secondly, she gains small amount of Fighting Spirit if any party member deals normal attack. Doing this method is very slow. If you have Natlan characters like Xilonen and Citlali, which are by the way her 2 top supports, then this will be very easy. Everyone can get Katrina too, but of course the former are more efficient and better supports. If you do not have other Natlan characters and you do not like to use Katrina, obtaining Fighting Spirit will be very challenging. And having other Natlan characters with her is almost required if you want to min-max her, since it also increases her attack by a lot. Well, technically Mavuika can still work without Natlan characters, but having a few will surely help your rotation and overall damage. That is why in this video, we should consider this thing so you know what to expect. With that, let's get started with the best teams. Our top 3 best team is Overload team. This team is actually strong but is ranked last for a few reasons. First, because this team is only worth it with Chevreuse to utilize her very strong buff. If you want to see how strong it is, you may watch my 2024 4-star ranking here, where she ranked first. Not using Chevreuse in a Mavuika Overload team is really not worth it. Also, using Chevreuse restricts you to using only Pyro and Electro due to her passive. So, Mavuika's best Overload team should look like this. The second is strictly for Chevreuse since she provides a huge attack bonus, and more importantly, she decreases Pyro and Electro resistance of enemies by up to 40%. And she also activates Pyro Resonance, which buffs attack. For a 4-star character at C0, this is insane. I can say that she is at par with C0 Kazuha in certain scenarios, and even better. However, it is important to note that the resistance shred only lasts 6 seconds. It will matter for the other team members that I will mention. The next slot should be for an Electro character. The best option for this is Auroron. Aside from his Electro application, which will be useful to activate Chevreuse resistance shred, he also consumes Night Soul points, which means we can collect Fighting Spirit for Mavuika faster. Also, she can activate Mavuika's passive to increase her attack as I mentioned in the consideration section. Lastly, Auroron can wear the Cinder set, which can increase Mavuika's elemental damage by up to 40%. This alone can be enough reason to use him in this team. Other options will not be the most efficient since so far we only have Auroron as our Natlan choice here. But Visual will be the second best since she can apply Electro more consistently and also deals huge damage alone. Next is Sarah for attack buff, but this will be tricky since she can only apply Electro before Mavuika uses her burst and not during her burst. And Chevreuse resistance shred after overload only lasts for 6 seconds. Considering Mavuika's burst animation time, you can only buff the initial burst damage in less than 4 seconds after that. So sadly, this means it is not optimal and will not cover the whole burst duration unless you have another Electro character. Another option is Beidou, but this will be very challenging considering her ER needs. The last slot should be reserved for another Pyro or Electro support or sub-DPS. The top choice for this is obviously Bennett for obvious reasons. such as his insane attack buff. Xiangling can be a choice too since she can increase attack by a little and also deals good damage, but her energy can be a problem. Another option is Noma, which can provide shield and can also use the tenacity set. If you do not have the options above, Tank Fei is technically good for shield, but that's it for her. Here are some damage showcase. For me, this is the hardest to set up and play with among the top 3 teams. But that is not to say this team is weak. It actually deals pretty huge damage. But you just have a lot of things to consider. The second best team for Mavuika is Vaporize team. Vape for Pyro main DPS is not new. Arlecchino and Hutao's best teams are Vape too. But for Mavuika, this is only her second best team. However, this is almost twice as strong as Overload. The best Vape team comp for Mavuika is this. Second slot is preferably for Xilonen. She is one of her top supports in almost all team comps. Firstly is because she can consume Night Soul points, which means she can efficiently fill Mavuika's fighting spirit. Next and more importantly, she can shred enemies' resistance by up to 36%. I also made a 2024 5-star ranking video and you will see that Xilonen is ranked first due to this. Aside from this, she can also wear the Cinder set, which as I mentioned earlier can increase elemental damage by 40%. On top of this, Xilonen can also heal, and she is great at it. Just look at this. There is no doubt Xilonen is one of Mavuika's best support, if not the best, even outside Vape teams. If sadly you do not have Xilonen, other supports that will not ruin Vape reactions while wearing the Cinder set will do the job. Kachina is the easiest FTP option and the best substitute that fits this criteria. She didn't have the best support capabilities, none at all, but being a Natlan character that can wear Cinder set and also help fill the fighting spirit is enough reason to be a substitute for Xilonen. The third slot should be given to a Hydro character that has consistent Hydro application. The top option for this is Furina. Aside from having strong damage, she can buff Mavuika by a lot while providing adequate Hydro application. She does not have the best Hydro application in the game, but it is enough to let Mavuika vape to deal huge damage on time. But you need some practice here, since after the first rotation, her minions will mostly apply Hydro to the enemy, making it a little hard for the holder of the Cinder set such as Kachina or Xilonen to activate the buff since it is required for the wearer to trigger elemental reaction with the element that needs to be buffed, in this case, Crystallized Pyro. And you will see here that I'm having a hard time making a Crystallized reaction to Pyro with Xilonen since Furina keeps on applying Hydro, making the enemy lose Pyro Aura. A solution for this is to switch Furina's skill to healing to avoid applying too much Hydro. Substitutes for Furina are the following. Kokomi can be a decent support healer. Aside from the very effective healing and decent Hydro, she can wear supportive sets like the Song of Days Pass to buff Mavuika's damage. Hayato can be a decent Hydro applicator with his burst. These two substitutes are quite a stretch, so I won't really advise to use them if you want to maximize damage. There are two other substitutes that will change Mavuika's playstyle. It is Xingqiu and Yelan. From being a nuke burst DPS that performs charge attacks after, it will change to using burst then normal attacks after, since charge attack cannot trigger their burst. And just take note that before doing Mavuika's burst, do one normal attack to trigger Xingqiu or Yelan's burst to apply Hydro so Mavuika can get those juicy numbers. The last slot is for another support, and this is preferably Bennett for the same reason I mentioned in the top 3 teams. Other supports that will not ruin Vape reaction will do too. So, take a look at why I told you that Vape is twice as strong as the Overload team.
Bring it. Letting brave names echo. Time to shine. Everybody stand back. Wrath from the sky.
We are on the last team. But before we continue, if you are enjoying this video and you find this informative, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you. The best and strongest DPS team for Mavuika is Melt. Here is a template for Melt Mavuika. Obviously Mavuika, a Cryo Applicator, and 2 supports that will not ruin Melt reaction. But there are three main characters that you should use to maximize Mavuika's damage. This is her premium top team. It should be composed of Xilonen, Bennett, and Citlali. We'll talk about the F2P friendly teams later. I won't discuss Bennett and Xilonen in this section since I already talked about why they are the two of the best supports for her. If you do not know, Melt is stronger than Reverse Wave since it has a higher multiplier if Pyro is the one that triggered it. And Citlali has a decent enough cryo application to let Mavuika trigger Melt every time it needs to. What's great is the cryo application is primarily caused by her skill, which is a very resilient shield. Aside from this, just like Xilonen, she is also a Natlan character, so together they will fill Mavuika's fighting spirit almost instantaneously. And of course, she can effectively use the Cinder set too. However, if you're going to use two Natlan characters, you may opt to use other artifacts like the Instructor set to increase EM since the Cinder set effect does not stack. And maybe the most important part after her cryo application is her ability to decrease enemies' pyro and hydro resistance by 20%. It looks like she is basically almost like Zhongli having a shield with resistance shred but with cryo application. As a Catalyst user, you may opt to use Trailing Tails too to increase Mavuika's attack. And Citlali also has above average burst damage due to her passive. All this makes her equally great support with Xilonen. If you do not have Citlali, the Yona is a good substitute, having both cryo application, shield, and healing, and she can also increase EM with C6. Layla can be a decent substitute too with a strong shield. Non-shielders like Kea and Rosaria will work too. Of course, in this team, you may also use animal characters like Kazuha and Sucrose to trigger Swirl and also activate the Viridescent Venerer set effect. So, here are some Melt damage showcases.
Teamwork is true. Show no mercy. Xilolen, it's my breath from the sky. Very well. Many brave names echo. I'm going in. Suffer the wrath of the light of the blazing sun. Everybody stand back. Show no mercy. You two. Breath from the sky. Incinerate. Many brave names echo. Everybody stand back. Shiver. Breath from the sky.
We reached the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Again, this is Earlbedo. See you next time.